It's in the unknown we discover just what we're made of. As the Buddha says, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. From LAX to Tai Pei, I spent the entirety of my 15-hour flight staring at a blank, black screen, with headphones silently resting in my ears, lost in anticipation that for the indefinite future, I was a stranger in a strange land. I had no inclination what to expect. I had no set plan. Vietnam had been my dream, a Mecca calling to my soul. Yet suddenly, I felt an uncharacteristic tinge of trepidation. Then my feet hit the streets of Hanoi, and I felt reborn. The pivotal moment arrived as I picked up my motorcycle and put my hands on the handlebars. I felt the rush of relentless determination which had been absent. Goosebumps trickled onto every inch of my skin, and my heart started to beat fast in my chest. I smiled wide, hit the throttle, and dove into the abyss that is the traffic of Southeast Asia. This is my world. Chaos, pandemonium, madness, and wonder. In the make or break moment every second, every day. And where better to test my fortitude than in a country foreign to everything I'd ever known? Road running. You're either born to do it or you aren't. And me, it's my purpose. One Hanoi humbly reminded me of approximately 5 seconds after I set foot in the old quarter. Walking the streets of this city is a treasure. The chaos of pedestrians, scooters, cars, bicycles, trucks, and animals, compounded by the densely humid air, hanging thick with the smell of roasting food, burning garbage, mild rain, occasional exhaust, pungent tobacco, and fragrant spices. It overloads and overwhelms the senses wholly and completely. There is no quiet, there is no time to dawdle, stop, or gawk, and if you aren't watching your step, you'll have a horn blasting in your ear and a scooter nearly swiping you as it races by. Yet it does feel inexplicably calm. Everything here has a purpose, in the same way that every element of a plant or animal is put to use, and nothing goes to waste unless it is absolutely useless. An infinite corridor of buzzing mechanic shops that are always paired with a group of hard-eyed men out front, smoking cigarettes, drinking tea, and yelling at each other with abandon. Closet mini-marts with anything you could possibly need, and without fail, an old woman willing to give you what's requested at half the price of the Winmart chain stores across the road. The fruit ladies with their bikes fully loaded of limes, mangoes, pineapples, strawberries, apples, and dragon fruit, sauntering through the streets and selling what they can to restaurants, locals on their way home, or tourists needing a refreshing snack. There's an abundant number of holes in the wall with tiny chairs and tables, ready to serve you the best bowl of pho you've ever tasted, or little trolleys that piece together a banh mi with chicken, beef, pork, or pate, and cilantro that ignites your taste buds. On every side street, a group of women sit on the ground amongst an array of produce, chopping raw meat with knives so sharp they slice bone, soaking blocks of tofu by the gram, and bartering an evening grocery order with shoppers. You can't go 20 meters without walking past a coffee shop, an ATM, a retail shop, or a hostel/hotel/homestay. And just when you think you've seen it all, you wander into a brewery and discover the best IPA you've had in years, in a place that I am pretty damn sure doesn't specialize in hops. You learn quickly that horn beeps are a gentle to aggressive reminder to others you don't want to be run over. A place where the traffic gives you mild anxiety no matter what time of day because red lights and signals mean nothing to anyone. And parking is always a challenge because scooters outnumber motorcycles about 500 to 1. Hanoi, a place where cash is king, Google Translate is your best friend, and Wi-Fi is abundant. Here, a smile gets a foot in the door, and genuine kindness takes you through it. It is impossible to go hungry, easy to get lost, and an adventure to explore. Don't drink the tap water, get ready to shower over the toilet, and revel in the weird and wonderful ways culture shock provides the grounding perspective that life is so much bigger than just ourselves. After a 48-hour stint of wandering through Hanoi and finalizing logistics with my buddy Garrett, we set out to do a little off-road riding in the north while he simultaneously vetted a dual-sport touring company. As a result, we were at the mercy of a guide named Knock for 6 days to show us the ropes. And accompanying Garrett and I was an acquaintance of his named Todd, who planned to travel with Garrett for the duration of his month in Vietnam. I would only be spending my first week with the guys before I matched up with Alex back in Hanoi for our own project. So this, for me, was a chance to do some adventure riding, as well as have a little time to get acquainted with my Honda XR 150, which would be the essence of my existence for at least 6 weeks. And damn, we had some fun. As our crew said a temporary goodbye to Hanoi and jetted to the mountains, the exhaustive noise of the streets and city faded away and was replaced with the buzzing of insects, the barking of dogs in the distance, the laughter of children, and the tapping of boats against the dock. The roadways are a mixture of pavement, mud, gravel, sharp turns, one-lane roads, and learning to balance between staying cautious and adrenaline-fueled eagerness. Once we were on the road every morning, it was always a full day of riding, including shuttle boats with engines that roar over the contrastingly calm waters. Rain would come and go as we ascended and then descended the high mountain passes, with an occasional parting of clouds which boasted jaw-dropping panoramas of the valleys below. The air was dense, filled with mist, bamboo-covered mountains cascading high up into the moody clouds overhead, and green stretched as far as the eye could see. The villages felt infinite, hidden up in the hills, scattered amongst the majestic rice fields, their own little universes so different from my own. Though I admittedly froze for a lot of our journey, I found that as I rode, I would forget the chill, and instead became caught up in the splendor of the picturesque landscapes, waving at smiling children, navigating small one-lane roads with 2 ways of traffic. And then there's chickens sprinting, cattle trotting, and guard dogs sleeping unless I rode too close. I fell in love with the coffee, brewed bitter and strong, meant to be diluted down with water, then sweetened with a touch of condensed milk. I learned what Knock called the local technique of riding down a 16% grade slope on single track slicker than owl snot by killing the engine and using just clutch and brake to slide down. Oof. I laughed with the audience of workers cheering me on after multiple crashes, a few of whom sprinted over to help me with the bike and gave me slaps on the back for encouragement. My heart, though, was captured by the shy young girls who stared at me with wide eyes. Because while I certainly stand out and attract attention in Vietnam, theirs is the only attention I truly want, because I want them to look at me and believe that they can do anything and be who they want to be, just as I have. Hell, that's the whole reason I'm out here. Each and every morning, the village roosters think it's wise to wake before the sun, and so I would reluctantly rise with them and meditate to relax the tumultuous beating of my happy heart. I took a few hard falls, but in spite of the weather, we were able to get out and explore a decent amount of off-road and single track as we skirted around Sapa, Vinh Yên, and Viet Tri. 3 of our 5 nights were spent at homestays, which meant sharing a communal sleep space where beds are on the floor and hot water runs out fast. Still, the meals were some of the best I ate in my entire stay of Vietnam. The majority of homestays are run by families, so dinner was a homemade treat of rice, spring rolls, some sort of combination of chicken, pork, or beef, fried tofu, local vegetables, a soup or broth, all of this paired with a dessert of fruit. While typically you are granted access to a refrigerator of beer, Coca-Cola, and water, You are also required to take a small shot of rice wine with your host, which is kept in a secondhand plastic water bottle, and refusing a toast is kind of forbidden. The families are always incredibly generous, kind, and enjoy watching you from a distance with careful consideration, almost as if they wish to study you from afar, but don't want to get too close. Each dormitory is up a flight of stairs, in which you leave your muddied motorcycle boots at the bottom and slip on a pair of provided sandals to not track dirt inside. Dirt, by the way, the Vietnamese hate it. So I had to be conscientious about my boots, my suit, luggage, and other gear that was usually muddied up and wet after a long day of riding motorcycles. The mattresses are, unforgiving. The blankets are heavy, and you can hear absolutely everything everyone is doing around you. And while that might bother some, for me, it's different. Sharing downtime and private space bonds you to the people you're with, because if you cannot escape each other, you not only get to know the people around you well, but you also learn to coexist in a world which is increasingly more isolating. My favorite part of this time on the road was having beers with Garrett and Ngoc after dinner, talking about life and being educated on the history of the Vietnamese people. Those conversations were so special and unique, an insight into a culture I'd never had the privilege of learning previously, and a gateway towards opening my eyes of how remarkable Vietnam truly is. After learning so much about each other, on our last night, Ngoc asked me what the downside was in living on the road, and I gave him my honest answer. The only downside to being a nomad is something I feel I see too often, and that's losing the magic. A causality I think of what often happens when your passion becomes your job. I often reflect on this with an ounce of sadness as a caution of my own potential future. The magic for me is why I'm out here. Content creation, videography, photography, posts, stories, reels, shorts, websites, SEO, brands. It's all a part of the game, a piece of what needs to be done to survive. But I'm a writer. No camera can capture what the eyes can see, what the heart can suffer, or what you can feel firsthand experiencing what the world gives. I started down this path last June with Tony's words echoing in my head, and they still do each day I wake up on the road. To see the world with open eyes. Money is a tool, yes. Work is a trick of the brain to keep us sharp. What resonates, what wakes us up in the morning, and what keeps us grinding is the passion in our blood to be curious, to learn, and to evolve into something greater. Rosa Luxemburg once declared, "Those who do not move do not notice their chains." I would also argue in this context that those who do not strive to see what's beautiful become blind to beauty's existence. Exploring what is uncomfortable and unknown facilitates a progression into both a freedom of the mind and a level of personal autonomy, which you feel only from growth, from release, and from gratitude. There are so many wonders to seek beyond complacency, yet in turn, if you cannot pause to appreciate the splendor of your experience, freedom itself can become a prison from which there is no reprieve. Those 6 days in northern Vietnam with Garrett and the guys gave me a vast, multifaceted, and profound sentiment of what life is like in northern Vietnam. I would argue, however, that what is extraordinary about Vietnam is not just the mind-blowing motorcycle riding. It is what you encounter when you hop off the bike and are immersed with the splendor here. Forests of rubber trees brought by the French in the 1800s, villages stacked high in the mountains with what seems like never-ending rice fields, hot springs where young and old congregate to spend time and soak together, a place where life revolves around the family, because when you ride into any town here, you are treated as thus. Where you stay, you are a guest. You are provided with hot tea as you take your boots off. You are fed meals fresh from the garden. You take a drink of homemade rice wine with your host like family. And you are given lodging to rest your tired body. It amazed me how I found so much value in what I spent, because everything was done with care, even though it was what most would consider cheap, and perhaps it is a new way I will be looking at quality versus quantity. quality doesn't always need to mean expensive. Quality only needs to mean done with heart. And everything in Vietnam is done just that way. Road running. It's bouncing, learning, adapting, and assimilating. But most notably, it's what sets you apart from the pack. That distinction of being a traveler rather than a tourist. My first week in Vietnam came to a close, and as I rode back into the busy streets of Hanoi towards Alex and the next adventure, I could feel the shift deep in my bones. The difference between the wary woman who'd gotten on the plane at LAX and the one who was riding like a seasoned professional through the dense, chaotic, and unpredictable traffic of the city. Born to run, born to explore, born a renegade.